Hello and welcome to the Overflow podcast. My name is Craig Booker. The title of today, I'm in training. A lot of the material for this week's episode was inspired by Craig Groeschel's book, The Power to Change, Mastering the Habits That Matter Most. Note, I will talk a lot about mental health, but please note this is not a substitute for therapy or mental health care. I am not a counselor or physician. If you need help with mental health challenges, please find a qualified mental health professional. Last week, we were talking about strategic habits, start, stop, and pivot. So, we're talking about making positive changes in our lives, and that can apply to a broad scope of things. We are looking at this through the lens of mental health. So, it's a little bit more in depth and there's a little bit more nuances where we have to stop and discuss because it's a little bit I want to say more complex, but there's different things to consider when we're looking at mental health and making positive changes there. But that the title of today again is I'm in training. To start off, it says I'm winning because I'm in training. Each time I do my habit, I win. So in Pastor Craig's book, he has a little bitty section that says, what are we going to do? And we're going to focus on who before do. We know behavior modification doesn't work, so we're all about identity transformation. Define our wins is number 2. We need the direction of a goal to help us begin. And number 3 is we're going to train, not try. We'll embrace a strategic habit and quit a habit we need to stop. Every day we'll live disciplined lives by choosing what we want most over what we want now. All right, so it's a good summary of a lot of stuff we've talked about. There's a lot of detail behind that, but hopefully that gives you a good overview. When entrepreneurs or business people are talking about being successful in business, often they'll talk about inputs and outcomes. So these are business terms. It's probably used somewhere else. That's where I've heard it used. What are the inputs to achieve the outcomes you're wanting? And if you look at this, the way that we're looking at this, your habit is your input and your goal is your outcome. And what we know is outcomes take time to realize. Those outcomes take time. And so if we only focus on those outcomes, the work that we're doing each day to try to get there, it just seems really grueling and hard. And so this is more of like a perspective shift than anything. When we're looking at inputs and outcomes, each time we complete our habit, we're doing our inputs and we're trying to get to our outcomes. We've taken the time to reflect and define what our win looks like. Like when we're being successful, what does that look like? We're looking at inputs and outcomes. Our habit is our input. Our goal is our outcome. Our outcomes take time to realize. And if we only focus on those outcomes, winning is real far in the distance. It can be really discouraging. It's really easy to burn out and just lose sight of why you started. Completing your habit is your win. Like when you make completing your habit your win, you can win every day. This is what Pastor Craig says, right? So each time we complete our habit, we're winning. So it's not just the goal. Eventually we'll get there. Our brains need this short-term win, right? We're completing our habit, we're winning. That way you don't have to wait weeks, months, or even years to win. Pastor Craig says, I'm successful when I train today. Training may look different to each of you depending on what your habit is, but you can say, I'm not trying, I'm in training. This is something he says all the time. And it's not just on when he's talking about this specific subject. He'll say, I'm in training. You don't say, I'm trying to be a better husband. I'm a husband in training. And that's okay. I'm a husband in training. I've been married over 20 years. So I'm still in training. So remember, the timing or pace of all of this may not match up with your expectations. They usually don't. I've never had like a goal or something I've trying to achieve that just perfectly matched up with what I had in mind and how long it would take to achieve it. You might get knocked down a few times along the way. In fact, I would expect that. If you don't get knocked down a few times, maybe your goal's a little too easy. So all you got to do is pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep doing your habit. You fail today, you don't do your habit today. What you need to do next is do your habit the next day. Offer yourself some grace. Yes, you messed up. You fell down, right? It's okay. We're not perfect. It's not about doing your habit perfectly. This is about doing it consistently. And if we do our habit consistently, we'll eventually get to our goal. With a big asterisk there of saying that you've picked out the right habit, right? If you've done the work to pick out the right strategic habit that's going to lead to your goal, if you keep consistently doing that habit, you're going to get to your goal. Commonly happens is we get discouraged, we get distracted, and we stop doing that habit. It's all about progress. You're not going to get to your goal overnight. So you have to see the short-term progress of doing your habit and celebrating that, because that's a big deal. Like I said last week, this is really hard, and we're asking you to change something that you're used to doing and you're comfortable with. Really offer yourself ability and the freedom to mess up. And it's just a matter of getting back up, dusting yourself off and keep on going and not losing sight of what you're trying to do. One thing that's probably really important that we do before we start down this path of trying to hit this goal is figuring out why we're doing that. When times get tough and you're really frustrated, you're tired, you're exhausted, the easiest thing for you to do is quit, because that means that you no longer have to do whatever routine that you're doing. Short term, it takes the pressure off, but long term, you're going to have that pain of regret. When we get deep in the thick of doing our habit, we need to be able to look back and clearly understand why we started this. If you can't easily have like either a note on your phone or wherever you want to keep it that reminds you of why you're doing your strategic habit, it's going to be really difficult to keep going. So you need to have that somewhere really convenient. When you forget why you're doing all this hard work, you can quickly look at that and go, oh yeah, this is the why behind all the hard stuff I'm doing. There's an exercise that I put in here. And I said, use the goals and the habits that we identified the last episode of start, stop, and pivot to complete these sentences. I'm going to stop trying to blank by blank. I'm starting my training by, and for each sentence, create a statement to remind you about your training. The example here is, I am not merely trying to get healthy. I exercise regularly, say no to sweets, and go to bed early because I am in training. That's an example of a statement. This is just another layer of having that reason why. So, we do the work to come up with the details of our why, and then we also come up with this statement, something that we can repeat over and over again, because as we're doing this, our brains need a reminder of this, and this is positive affirmation to remind you of this when you're doubting yourself, when you're doubting what you're doing. So this is just an exercise that you can go through. Again, you'll probably need to go back, and if you haven't done the strategic habits, start, stop, and pivot exercise, just go to the website also and you can find it. And the principle here is, I'm not trying, I'm in training, right? We're reversing that mindset. We're kind of flipping that on its head and saying, I'm in training, because the perspective here is that I'm working towards a goal. I'm being very intentional. The Bible verse here is 1 Timothy 4:8 in the New Living Translation. It says, physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and in the life to come. That's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.